think one of the biggest concerns is teaching a child to love themselves and to, um, well, I have had an interesting experience personally, just because I have two kids that when my older two, we call them the big kids in our house, were growing up, uh, technology existed. It was emerging. They had cell phones in case of an emergency. They were busy kids. We were busy working parents. So we had a way to communicate, but our older kids were not living on their phones. They weren't in their faces all the time. Come 10 years later, transition to little Gracie, who came into the world, and she's never known a world without that face-to-face interaction with immersive technology. And so I've seen the difference. I've seen the struggle that her generation faces, and probably one of the biggest things is to just teach them I mean, my biggest concern is to teach them to put it down and make eye contact, to learn how to communicate directly, because that teaches them a level of confidence in themselves because they know how to talk to people. And I really think that tends to be my biggest concern about kids today is learning how to put that down. And, I love it when my 20-year-old doesn't answer me. And she says, "Sorry, Mama, I didn't have my phone for a couple of hours." Those are my favorite words to hear. Even though I want to touch base with her, I know if I haven't heard back, it's because she put the darn thing down. And that's a good thing. We highly encourage it because it's just not normal for kids right now.
All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of Parenting Teens Today. I'm your host, Adam Episcopo. Today, we are very lucky to speak to a woman who's feels like she's doing it all. She's a former classroom teacher, business leader, speaker, author, going to be starting a new podcast here shortly. Over 20 years experience in the education system, and very excited to talk to her about her book, The One and Only, Colleen Souza. Thank you so much for
Thank you
joining us.
very much for having me on today. I appreciate it.
Yes, of course. So let's just dive into it. I want to start the origin story of Colleen. So how did you kind of get into education, the education system, become a teacher, and how did that
Sure.
kind of translate into what you're doing
Yeah.
now?
Well, I worked with kids, worked with church youth groups back in my college days, and I always loved kids, and I knew that I wanted to teach teenagers, which nobody, you know, in my credential programs wanted to do. They're like, "Are you crazy?" No, I loved teenagers. The 6 weeks I had to spend in a kindergarten classroom just about killed me. So I love working with teenagers, all their attitude, all their angst. But I taught middle school because I love kids, and everybody told me I should be a teacher, so I jumped on board and was a teacher. And I did spend 20 years helping out kids, and I really liked it. In my particular school district, the platform that I taught in was called AB, Academic Block, and it was English and History. I was the homeroom teacher, and I had these kids for a couple hours every day, no matter what their schedules were. So it did really lend itself toward developing relationships with teenagers and having a chance to kind of be that consistent face they saw every day, no matter what was going on in their world. I thought it was a really special place to be able to teach. And so I did that for a lot of years, ended up helping open up a brand new school in the last 5 years of my teaching experience, where I got to spend time developing a peer counseling program. And that was really exciting too. I still taught AB, but I added on to my schedule developing a 7th through 12th grade program where we train students to be peer leaders, to be able to be available to other students when they just needed someone to talk to. And we did activities and things throughout the school year to help bring kids that were struggling, around. So yeah, that's kind of my background when it comes to education.
I love that.
And
Um,
raised 3 kids of my own that all went through the teenage years. So I have been
I
there.
was
Yeah.
just going to ask you. I see that your mother are three, so they're older now. Is that correct? Are they off?
My kids are 32, 29, and as we speak, 20. I've been married for 35 years to the same person, but we decided to have one when we already had teenagers. So you want to talk about adding dynamics to a household with teenagers. So they got to help me raise that child. So I have no grandchildren yet. But the bottom line is uh, I have, and I was the mom that had every kid at our house. They all called me mama. So I just had teenagers around me all the time. Seems like forever. But yeah, raised 3 and made it through the craziness. Made it through the
And
craziness.
according to you, they still like you. You're still the cool
They
mom.
still like us, which I think sometimes is an amazing thing. Like our 32-year-old
Absolutely.
had to be in town to pick somebody up from an air flight. He lives 3 hours away and just popped in last night to crash for the night, have breakfast with us, and head to the airport and head back on his way for business. So, when they do that kind of thing, you realize they still like to see you every once in a while and be around you. It's kind of good.
Makes you feel good. You did a good job, mom. You did a good job. So I
Trying.
want to ask you. So this is a question we love to ask guests, and because of your teacher background and your history all that and the education system, what would you say, in your eyes, is the biggest concern parents have for teens today with the culture? It could be, obviously the cell phones and all that stuff, but
Sure.
what your
Oh,
opinion on that? I know I think I read you have a, is it a technology?
I
Pardon me
have
if
a
I'm getting
master's degree in education and
that's
technology. Yeah,
that's
I
right.
did.
So
I did get to learn how to integrate all those things together. Um,
yes,
yeah, I think one of the biggest concerns is teaching a child to love themselves and to, um, listen. I have had an interesting experience personally, just because I have two kids that when my older two, we call them the big kids in our house, were growing up. uh, Technology existed. It was emerging. They had cell phones in case of an emergency. They were busy kids. We were busy working parents. So we had a way to communicate, but our older kids were not living on their phones. They weren't in their faces all the time. Come 10 years later, transition to little Gracie, who came into the world, and she's never known a world without that face to face interaction with immersive technology. And so I've seen the difference. I've seen the struggle that her generation faces, and probably one of the biggest things is to just teach them I mean, my biggest concern is to teach them to put it down and make eye contact, to learn how to communicate directly, because that teaches them a level of confidence in themselves because they know how to talk to people. And I really think that tends to be my biggest concern about kids today is learning how to put that down. And I love it when my 20-year-old doesn't answer me and she says, "Sorry, mom, I didn't have my phone for a couple of hours." Those are my favorite words to hear. Even though I want to touch base with her, I know if I haven't heard back, it's because she put the darn thing down. And that's a good thing. We highly encourage it because it's just not normal for kids right now. So that is my biggest concern, is teaching them how to interact again, person to person. And a lot of that has to do with self-confidence because they hide behind that. So that is my concern. Yeah,
well, I
definitely.
totally agree with you, and I have a 13-year-old I live with, and so that is one thing I've noticed, and obviously with the pandemic happening, that did not help things. It
It did
seems
not
like
help.
it was not that long ago, but almost 6 years now, which is crazy, but still seeing the after effects from it. But yeah, to bring him up again, I noticed that, the confidence in speaking, just being able to go out and order your own food confidently or order a coffee
Yeah.
confidently.
And I talk about that a lot in my book that I wrote because
Mm,
it's just so important. People ask all the time with us, your kids. I mean, one of the things that drove me to write the book was that I had people constantly saying, "Well, why are your kids so confident? Why are they so this, this, so that?" And there were a lot of things involved in that, but it's teaching them to get up and talk or go out and speak or speak for themselves and not speak for them, which is a really big problem that we have as adults. We want to take care of them, so we try to take care of it all, that kind of a thing. But yeah, it's very important, and the pandemic did affect that because they didn't go out and they didn't interact.
and that's one thing we try to teach in our program is find your tribe, find your club, find a sport, find an
Yeah,
instrument, find something to get you out and put you in a community of good people, right?
exactly.
That you can build that relationship with, gain confidence. It's all aligned. So I completely agree with you on that.
Yeah.
Speaking of your book, so I see that, and I don't know if this is in your book, but I see that your three main core beliefs of value are teaching, humor, and listening. I love that you mix in humor. I think that's
Oh,
so important, right?
I tell
Break that down
if
for me. Like,
as a parent out there listening, if you're looking for a book where you're gonna get some laughs and giggles, you got I'm sarcastic, I am who I am, but I think that more people need to be that way. Hanging out with me is just, um, I'm gonna say mean sarcasm, but it's just constant. It's a constant jibe. But I think that people forget that, humor is an emotion. And, and when you're talking about teenagers in particular, they're so freaking emotional, and they're so all over the place all the time, right? And I talk about that in the mantra number one in the book is keep your pants on. That was the number one rule in our house, which, when they were little meant one thing, meant something else when they got older. But, keep your pants on. It was always about making good choices, right? It was about thinking about how you handle yourself. And I think so often, they get so stressed out and they get so wrapped up in all these things, and teenagers have the hardest time making rational decisions simply because everything is just so overwhelming.
Mhm.
And when you teach them to have a sense of humor about themselves, about the world around them, then they stop taking it so seriously. And that's a positive emotion, the positive endorphins, the positive thinking that comes in. So yeah, no, it's a very important humor
I
is.
love that. I think that, yeah, I agree. That's super important. Yeah, life, you don't have to take it so seriously, but do your things you need to do. But it's okay to have some grace,
Yeah. Well,
relax. It's
and I
okay.
think with that whole talk about what I'm concerned about, they
Yeah.
just take everything for um face value all the time,
Mhm.
or like, oh, I saw it on FaceTime, or I saw it on, TikTok, or, whatever. And they need to realize, was that real? And can you laugh at that rather than be, so yeah, it's definitely humor is
Yeah,
so
quit comparing yourselves to others you're seeing online. Be yourself, and it's just hard.
absolutely.
You get in that endless scroll, and you're doomed. It's an
Yeah.
algorithm created to really just kind of suck you in, right? And I mean, I'm
Oh, yeah.
guilty of it too,
Absolutely.
So it's
Absolutely.
yeah. But for teens, it's difficult. So I love that you mix those different
Yeah.
attributes in. That's
Yeah.
awesome. So you've built so much of your work around simple, powerful mantras, like you've mentioned. Can you share one that not to keep your pants on, which I love that, but can you share one that has been especially maybe meaningful in parenting or teaching teens and how it's helped
Yeah,
shape
I have
your
a couple that I think, I was thinking about, because I knew I was going to talk with you guys about
yeah.
teens, and there's a few that are super super important. So understand when I say living by the mantras, a mantra is anything repeated over and over again that becomes something significant. Our mantras were, a lot of them, based in humor, keeping your pants on. If it's wet and not yours, don't touch it, things like that. But one of them was, number 4 is, be about solutions, not problems. And that was consistent, because we have problems. It's not that we're ignoring problems. It's not that we're not identifying that we have them. It's not that we aren't burdened by them on some days, but it's okay, fine. Now you've shared it. My thing was always, okay, now that you've shared it, what are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
So I think that's a real significant one. Be about solutions, not problems. The value behind it, because each one of the mantras has a value attached. That one's about positivity, and it's about finding in ourselves the ability to twist a problem into something more positive. Being forcing our minds to seek solutions. And so, like, one of the things I share is that I
Mhm.
always had a rule. You had to come up with 3 solutions. You could share your problem with me. You could cry for an hour on my shoulder, student or child of my own. But then you had to take a deep breath and come up with 3 solutions the next time we talked about it, because it helps you see that every situation you go into is multifaceted. That there's complexity and everything. It's not just about you. It's about whoever's involved in that problem,
Mhm.
and that there are different ideas and emotions involved. And if you can come up with 3 ways and narrow them down to the best way to handle them, then you're also going to take ownership in making sure that the solution happens. And so that was like one of my big ones. And you feel, whenever we accomplish anything that we're hoping to setting out to do, it makes us feel better about ourselves. So then the positivity continues. So I think that's a really big one, is be about solutions, not problems. Probably the other one that kind of goes along with that for me is, I can't yet. That was one of our rules. You could say I can't, but you always had to say yet at the end. And
Mhm. Mhm.
on the we had a thing on our refrigerator that said, I can't dot 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 yet. I had it on my classroom wall. And it's okay to not be able to do something, but that's about overcoming obstacles, which really is tied right to attitude and self-confidence.
Yes.
Because you have to have a growth mindset. You have to understand that we can't do everything perfectly at first. Maybe we want to look like the person that's on our screen. Maybe we want something that we don't have yet. So what are we going to do to get there? How are we going to overcome whatever obstacles keeping us from feeling that success? And that's just a really huge one, because I think it develops resilience. I mean, probably the best example of that one is, if we if we didn't overcome obstacles, none of us would be walking. We'd be crawling people across the planet. But think about it, when we're little, nothing stops us. So when we get up on our feet for the first time and we start learning to walk, we fall a lot. And think about it, parents are cheering you on. It's okay, you fell, get up again. We have to look at every little thing in life like that, whether, and you were saying you encourage kids to get out there and learn things. What I
Mhm.
hear is this: I'm too old to start that. I don't know if I can start anything now. No, no, no. Everybody starts somewhere. You got to learn to play an instrument, and you're
Yes.
going to sound terrible at first, but then you're going to get better. You're going to have to learn how to, and it could just be being confident enough to speak or do something. So definitely, definitely, I can't yet.
I
Always add
love
the
it.
word yeah. Yeah.
This is music. This is music to my ears. We always say the saying in our program. It's you can't have somebody do the push-ups for you. You can take them to the gym. Take them to the gym. You can introducing the trainer, but if they don't put the time in and put that effort in to get where they want to be, you have to
Oh, yeah.
don't be so negative up front. I can't do that. I'm too old. No, give it just not
Yeah.
yet. I love that. That's
Not yet. Well, my husband always had a saying that he said to our kids that the man on the top of the mountain didn't just fall there. He had to climb. And so it's the same kind of a concept once again. Like you have to, that was Vince Lombardi, I think that that he stole that quote from by the way, in my book, we don't take total credit for all these things. These are just awesome things we've heard and implemented.
yeah.
And I think that's another important thing for parents and for kids to understand that you can take the best ideas that are out there and
Hmm.
you can implement them in your life. You don't have to create them. You don't have to originate them. You can just take them to the
Yes.
next level.
Oh man, I love it. Yeah, everything you're saying is like exactly what we go by. I love it.
Awesome.
So I want to ask you about your childhood. I read that you spent a lot of time observing others and noticing what made people tick. How has that skill and observation helped you connect with teens as a teacher, but
Uh-huh.
also get this book written? Um, just maybe give me a little bit of a backstory of what you mean by that
Oh,
when you say
sure.
that.
Well, I absolutely adore my family and I was very loved. Please don't get me wrong.
Yes.
I have to
Oh
say that
yes.
very carefully because my mother listens to this. Mom, you were awesome. But here's the deal. I was definitely the very vivacious, outgoing person.
Mm,
I always wanted to see, explore, and learn, and I was never afraid to try things.
yeah.
I was told that I always had rose-colored glasses on, that I saw things too positively, and I used to say, "But I love unicorns and rainbows, so leave me alone." It's okay.
Mhm,
But
mhm,
along with that came this sense of feeling a little awkward at times, and so I would spend a lot of time just observing because I found it being quiet and observing was better. And so I did a lot of that. What it did for me is it teaches you. I've got to share just this weekend, just as a push for my book. We had a big we have a balloon festival in the fall here. And so it's called Clovis Fest. And so I had a booth at Clovis Fest. And honestly, I wasn't as attractive as all the fun toys kids could buy or creative crafts or the herbalist next door to me.
yeah.
But people would walk up and talk with me. But most of the time I spent just observing the crowd. And I find it
Mm,
to be so helpful in understanding human nature. I mean,
mm,
if we spent a little bit of time putting those phones down and just watching people interact with one another, talk with one another, and I think all of those skills came together to help me understand that everybody's different, but everybody's beautiful. And that's the other thing. If you sit and watch every once in a while, you stop the little things you pick on yourself about. I don't know. I would go, I need to stop being so uptight about that. Just look at how happy they are just being them over there and them over there. And I think for kids, because they don't engage as much as they should, if there's one thing
mhm,
you can do, take them for an ice cream and sit on a park bench in a busy place. Let
right.
them just say, we're not going to talk for 5 minutes, no phones. We're just going to observe and then we're going to talk about what we saw. I mean, I would
Yeah.
do that kind of thing, even with my own kids, because I think it's important to see what's out there and
Yeah.
understand that humanity is more tied together than we give it credit for, and that kind of a thing. So I think that probably led me down this path of wanting to engage with folks.
I love it. It's awesome.
Yeah,
And another thing you mentioned is that is just a desire to be loved, right? That's something you really have preached in your books and have brought up. How can parents and educators better show love to their teens, especially if they're pushing boundaries or pulling away? What would be
absolutely.
a couple golden nuggets you could share?
Probably. Well, first of all, I think I think there's a little. I think what's mantra number 11. Why be normal and be yourself and be authentic. And I think that authenticity is huge. I think when we take a moment and remember what it's like to be them.
Mm, hmm.
I mean, because we get into our adult patterns, we get into our adult time frames and what we need to get done and our expectations. And sometimes I know I forget it. We forget it even with our peers, much less our children. But, sometimes we have to stop and just take a moment. And for me, what I discovered is when they are driving me crazy, if I stop and told them a story about me when I was their age, I think sometimes we're afraid, oh, we can't let them know that that happened or that I did that thing or that I thought that way. No, you become a lot more real to them and a
Put
lot more
yourself in their
authentic.
shoes, right? Yeah, yeah,
And
100%.
when you expose a little bit about the fact that, hey, I remember when I was, 14 years old, there was this day, and you tell a story and they're shocked. Mom, you did that. Mom, you thought that. Mom, you talked back to your mom. Oh, honey, I did. And let me tell you what I learned. But then you share with them what you learned from that experience and, why, you know, why you wished you hadn't, or whatever it is, or what you learned. I think it makes us have better perspective, more patience, more kindness, and then it also helps them realize we were real, that we were human, that we you know what I mean? So that's
percent.
one thing I think that, I because I talk a lot about being transparent, and I think that's hard. That's hard. It's hard for us as adults because we think we always have to be in that role of, and I think
Mhm.
the other thing is letting them fail, and that's hard too, because we wanna keep them safe, and we want them to make all the right decisions. Sometimes we need to let them within, as long as they're physically going to survive it,
Right.
we're not worried about their risk for safety. I think another way to deal with a really difficult child or student is to let them have whatever failure or consequence is gonna come from the decisions that they make, but then be prepared with compassion to sit down and go, "Okay, well, let's talk about that." Let's
Yeah.
talk about why that was a massive epic failure, and then but not you're not an epic failure, but why that decision was an epic failure, and how can you come out of that next time not feeling this way or not having experienced that. And I think that that's another piece of it, is that sometimes we have to just let them go and, fall off the monkey bars
Yeah.
if it's only 2 feet, because when they bruise their elbow or aren't feeling good and you put a little ice on, you can have a conversation about why you probably shouldn't have done that. What could we have done that was safer? And then next
Mhm.
time they're gonna think it, or you help them come up with those decisions, which is a part of it too.
Yeah, failure's part of life.
I
It's
mean,
part how do you grow, right? And how you get
yeah,
better,
it
and it's hard to accept that, especially as a teen. I mean, even as an adult, right? But, yeah, the
we all
earlier
we
you
all
can.
wanna have the pretty success at all times, but we're not going to. That is,
Yes.
we either win or we learn. That's, mantra number,
Ooh,
which one is it? Number 18, and it's
I
about
love
embracing
that.
failure, because we have to expect that we're gonna have winning moments, but we're gonna have failing moments too, and that's
Yeah,
just
and
part of life.
those learning moments are even more valuable. So, yeah, I love that. So what was it again? You can either you win or
You
learn, would you
either
say?
win or you learn.
I love that. Oh my god, that's great. I love that a lot.
We don't have failures, because failures is about not getting up and trying again. There's so many wonderful stories of, it's not how many times you go down, it's how many times you get back up. And it's that
Mhm, and
kind
is
of
it
an idea. Okay, so that wasn't so good. I have a great little story. It
yeah,
might be in that chapter, but it's about a little guy who keeps jumping off the stairs, and his mom tells him to stop, and then he stumbles down the stairs, and mom goes running to him, and I was trying to be Peter Pan. And she's like, "Honey, do you understand the difference between make believe and, reality?" And she has this whole conversation feeling very confident with herself, and she walks away thinking, I've helped him understand the difference. And as she walks away, she hears him say, "Not enough pixie dust." Like, to him it was just, "Okay, we'll try this one more time." And sometimes it takes letting them have those moments, and then eventually they figure out, what's right and what's wrong and what's good and what's bad. So it's
and
a
it's
hard.
tough as a parent, you wanna protect your child, you wanna make sure they're okay, you wanna be there, but it's so valuable to, like you mentioned, sometimes you gotta let them make those mistakes on their own so they know
Yeah,
how to bounce back. Because bad
absolutely.
things are gonna happen to us in life, you gotta learn how to adjust your attitude to it, right? I mean, it's inevitable,
Oh my
something's
god, it's a
gonna
part of it.
happen.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes, 100%. Well, awesome. I loved about the book. We'll get some more questions at the end. I wanted to transition real quick into, I know you mentioned before we hopped on here, but the peer counseling program you
Yeah.
started. Can you tell me a little bit about that and some of the success story maybe
Yeah,
you've
I mean,
had? Or,
and once again, like anything I've done in life, I've modeled from people that have done a great job before. I came from a school site that had a peer counseling program that I saw as was super productive, and so I proposed that same thing to my administration, and it was great. So basically, what it was is we put our students through this training program
Mhm,
where they learned how to ask the right questions to figure out, because students were allowed to request a peer counselor through their teacher or through the counseling office. Maybe they didn't want to talk to an adult. They just wanted to talk to another kid and bounce some ideas. And my kids
mhm,
were trained on the kinds of questions to ask. And they let them know up front every time, "Hey, I'm going to talk with you and I'm going to listen for the next, we have 30 minutes. You're out of class and we can talk for a while. But do know if you mention anything that, where I'm worried about you harming yourself or
right.
something along those lines, I am going to pull an adult." So you pull in an adult. So it gave the student who chose to talk with a peer counselor the option about how much they wanted to share. But at
Mm,
the same time, a lot of times kids just wanted to talk to somebody who they trusted or that was their age, and they
mhm,
would spill it all. And then we knew how to intervene and get help in there. But a large part of it was offering programs on our campus that gave kids a place to come. Like we did whenever we had foreign exchange students, there was always at least it was a big campus. We had 3,000 students on this huge campus. But we would have at least 100 kids every year that were foreign exchange students that hardly spoke
Mm,
English. So
mm,
like once a month we had a lunch where all those foreign exchange students could come in and just take a deep breath and know that they could be themselves and they weren't trying to, figure out how to be like all
to
the
the
kids around
norms or
them.
whatever. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, we'd have a new student luncheon if there had been any new kids on our campus. Once a month, we would have a new because there was always kids in and out, and we would have a new student luncheon so that they would feel like they had at least one friend that they could talk to. And we would do team building activities, and teachers could refer students in at least once a quarter in our gym. I'd bring in speakers, and I'd have some student speakers, and then we'd do activities all day long that were just kind of friendship building, team building. It was
yeah.
it was an awesome program. It was a lot of fun because it allowed students who signed up for that program obviously had wondered within themselves, hey, is this something I want to do is to work with others? And it gave, at 30 junior hires, 30 high schoolers. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
I
Yeah,
love that. Yeah, it's same message, different messenger. Having a mentor, right? Something that these kids can feel comfortable
absolutely.
opening up with. This isn't therapy. We're not going to share everything,
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, they would make a list of these are the things that I will go to an adult with if I have concerns, and then that adult would always be me, and then I would help, refer them out. But yeah, 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 it was a great program. If you're at a school that is open to it, and you can find a teacher that is open to it, it was a wonderful. There's so many resources to train kids, and then I take my peer counselors, which gave those kids a chance to be leaders,
Mhm.
and I would take them to different. We have like a Air Force training base not far from us.
Oh,
And so one day at the beginning of the year, I took them out and those guys all did like, kinds of like different skills with my peer counselors to train them. So they had an opportunity to step it up a notch and understand what it was like to, be more serious and focused. So it's all around. It's a great program if someone can get one going.
that's
Yep.
amazing. Yeah, I love
Yeah.
that. I love that the style of how you did it and how yeah, I feel like that probably made a big impact on especially like you mentioned, especially those students from other countries, get making them feel a little bit more
Yeah.
welcome.
So
And
well,
you're
and
not
and here
all
yeah, I was gonna
yeah,
say, here's the deal, if you have a student who if you're a parent who has a student who wants to be a leader, maybe they could start a club that does something a little bit like that on campus. I mean, there's so many ways, even if the school isn't, can't pay a
right?
teacher to do it.
Yeah.
There's lots of ways to get around to doing that. Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. I love all that. So you've mentored both educators and business leaders. And I know you have real estate going on too. That's a whole other thing. Over $300 million, right? You said in
My
sales. That's
husband and I had sold
oh
in
my
real
gosh,
estate. Yeah, we have,
incredible.
and it was, we work with it's called the XP Realty, but a few years ago, right before the pandemic, I was mentor of the year for 40,000 agents. So that was a lot of fun. I left teaching, but I couldn't leave teaching apparently. So I still needed to
Yeah.
teach in realtors all the time. So
What similarities would you say that there is between mentoring adults and guiding teens?
Depending on the adults, not a lot. No, I'm just joking. I say that with a lot of humor. Like I said, I was sarcastic, but I don't think that some of our basic insecurities ever leave us. And when one of the things I loved, like when my husband he ran our real estate company before I came along, and he was like, "I need to hire somebody," and I'm like, "Pick me. I'm ready for transition, and it'll
Mhm,
help us put kids through college." But the bottom line is, it's buying a house is one of the most trying, and it's your financial future, it's your life.
yeah.
There's a lot of drama that can go on, at least internally, as you're going through that process. And what I
Mhm,
discovered in the process is we build relationships with people. It's part of our success. It's just that we build relationships with people and we make them feel confident and comfortable, teaching
mhm,
them what's important about the decisions they're making. And then they turn around and tell everybody, you got to work with these guys. So, there's a lot of relatable pieces there because I think all of us are seeking somebody who's listening to us, somebody that understands what our concerns are, where we're stressed, where our emotions are. So
mhm.
that transition worked well for me because I just was taking care of people in a new environment. Yeah.
Yeah. You showed you cared. People know they
And the
can feel
crazy
the
thing is
energy.
when some of those former students became adults because I'd been doing it for so long and they
Right.
saw that I was doing real estate, then they were like, Mrs. Souza, can you help us buy a house? I'm like, I've already been around this popsicle stand with you once. Yeah, no, it was fun, but it was a lot of fun. A lot of fun. Yeah.
Love it. So back to your writing style, and you said that writing allows people to pause, reflect, carry
Hmm.
ideas into their own lives. How I know I want to hear kind of like how did you get pushed to write this book and that process of getting to it and reflecting on your own
Yeah.
journey as a parent, teacher, Leader.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that was like a multifaceted question there, but
No, but
uh,
no, it is. It's funny. Was chatting with my son a little bit this morning as we were having coffee as before he had to take off and go do work. Um, and he, I- my oldest and my very youngest, the audiobook will be coming out because I'm in the middle of recording the audiobook right now. And so by the time the book launches in late October, um, the audiobook will be there too. And those two told me, "Love you, mom, not buying the audiobook. Listening to you talk to us for 7 hours, can't handle it." So I it was hilarious because I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And even my son said, "Ma, I was reading it and it was like you were sitting next to me as I could hear you. But except like I couldn't get a word in edgewise." And I was like, "I'm so sorry." So so sorry about that. Yeah.
oh
I'm
my
like,
god, that's
read some
hilarious.
more to your mother." But
Yeah.
the bottom line is I think it's because I believe that every person has a story. And I think the
Mm,
more that we listen to one another's stories, and maybe this is part of that skill of observing, but I think each and every, I like to make up the stories as I see people walking by in a crowd or doing whatever. I'm like, I make up that they or whatever. So I realize that, from that 30,000-foot view, if you see all those people down there, you got to realize that each one of them is walking their own little lifeline and their own little story. And if you feel passionate about the principles and values, because these mantras are each tied to a value. I mean, the subtitle of the book is Common Sense Wisdom for an Extraordinary Life. It's like I believe that there's just not enough things like respect and positivity and hard work and generosity and, the need to overcome obstacles, delayed gratification, all of these different things, having vision, having integrity. These are all the principles that were attached to our mantras. And I just felt like people love that reassuring voice that they're not crazy when they want these things, or this is a good way to get back on track with these things. That
mhm,
drove me to write. And it
yeah,
wasn't exactly easy. I did most of it. I won't lie. I did most of it during my daughter's junior and senior year. I had notes
mm,
over the years, and my kids did help me say, "Mom, these were the most important things you ever taught us." I said, "Of all the little phrases and mantras I always used," because they always
mm,
called them mom's mantras.
I love
um,
it.
I said, which ones would you say are the most important?" And so they kind of helped me compile the list and I had to narrow it down because there are way more than 21. But the bottom line is I realized how important it was to get that out there. And once I started writing it, I had a passion to finish that.
Couldn't
So I
stop,
did
right,
most of
yeah,
it during my daughter's junior and senior year. The youngest one sitting at the table from about 9 o'clock at night when she was off on her phone doing her thing. And the day was done. I would sit and
mhm,
write till about midnight every night just because and then once I got started, I had a hard time stopping because
right.
I had a desire to make sure that some of these thoughts were out there. So yeah,
When
definitely.
is the book officially coming out? When is it gonna be released? October, was
October
it 20?
21st. It's available for
21st.
pre-order on Amazon right now, but it'll be out October 21st. That's its launch date. So
Beautiful,
yeah.
awesome,
I mean, I
definitely
just excitingly got my own little copies the other day. So I'm so
no,
excited because I wanted to.
it's real, it's
Oh,
happening, it's
no. I
happening.
cried, I cried. I did an
I
unboxing
bet.
video, it hasn't been posted yet because I was like, I'm such a dork, but I'm like, my
No,
baby,
no. You
it's
yeah, you
it's a
pour a lot of emotion and time into it, and it's like, all these values you've been
yeah,
teaching
well,
to your
and
own
it's a s
kids, and it's
it
yeah,
is, and it's a parenting book, but if you're thinking, "I don't know if I wanna read a parenting book," it's a mindset book. It's a bit of a leadership book because all of these principles tied into our business, they tied into our life, and I think sometimes we just need to find out that we're not alone in the thoughts or get some good ideas, and this is just that story, really. It's just fun, yeah.
well, I got one fun question for you, a fun one. I love to ask the guests this. If you could go back to the 13-year-old Colleen and go back in time and stand in front of her, maybe she's just about to start middle school or, 15, 14, going to high school, what would be one piece of wisdom you would share with younger Colleen that you know now with all the experience you have with as a teacher and you've written this book and have 3 kids, what would be one piece of advice you would give your younger self?
Believe it or not, because I'm a very outgoing and people think uber confident person, and in a lot of ways I am, but I would ask myself to do what I've done with my youngest daughter. I didn't do it with my older 2 because this is one she contributed, and it's mantra number 10. When she started kindergarten, um, I decided that I was gonna make her have a positive phrase every day that she said before she walked into her day. And so
Okay.
she wasn't allowed to get out of the car and go to school her entire life without telling me I'm smart, I'm beautiful, and I'm gonna have a great day. And if
Mhm.
I was to go back it would be to create a phrase like, I mean, and that's her phrase. And she will sometimes call me or I'll text her if I know she has an interview or a big exam or something big going on down in college now. Sometimes she'll just call and go, I'm smart, I'm beautiful, and have a great day, and hang up because she just wants to say it out loud. Um, that empowered her. She is so empowered and so confident. And if I went back to 13-year-old Colleen, I mean, I love who I've become and I love what's happened with my life.
Yeah.
But I think that I would have loved to have done it with a little more internal confidence within myself, like not always doubting and pushing through some of there might be some things I would have done that I didn't do because I had just that ounce of self-belief within myself. So I think I would just walk back and remind myself that I'm beautiful and I'm capable and that whatever I take on, I will find a way to make that happen, find a way to overcome it, and most importantly, love myself while I was doing it. So I
I
think that's
mean,
a very important one.
those positive affirmations are so important too. And I try to get my stepson to do it too. Even as an athlete, I'm like,
Yeah.
you're
Well,
strong.
yeah.
You got
Well, and
this.
that's just it, and chapter 10 in this is called "I'm smart and beautiful and have a great day," and it's I the value is manifesting, but really, it's just create your own mantra. For a young man, he's not gonna go, "I'm smart and beautiful and have a great day." He's gonna say, I'm strong,
Yeah.
I am confident. I am,
Hmm.
whatever it is,
Hmm.
create your own mantras.
Yeah.
It's what's most important in all of this is just that you understand the importance of these values and these important things in your life that are going to make you become the best version of yourself. And in the process, create whatever you can say. And I mean, if you want to borrow ours, great, but take the lessons that come from it and create what works for you so that you are the best version of yourself and the most confident and love who you are. I mean, that's just the thing that I don't think enough of us do. We're not taught to do it.
Amazing, Colleen. I love it. I love everything you've shared. Please
Thank you.
let us everyone know here where they can find your book. Again, to give them the
Absolutely.
date, and we'll put the links on the screen for you. But
Please. Yeah.
where can people find the book? Yeah.
Well, you can go to my website. It's
Mhm.
not complicated. I realized I didn't even think about that. My husband had a bunch of those made and put them all over the place so that everywhere I go, I see them.
They look
But it's
good. They look good.
livingbythemantras.com. And it's the website. And on that website, it links you to pre-ordering the book, which comes out on October 21st. So we're on a countdown. What's really important to me too is at the very bottom of the page, I was sharing this earlier with Adam. I'm returning to social media after quite a break from it because I
She's
personally
back.
needed a break from it. It's probably why the book is done because I was not distracted scrolling. But I know that it's a very important piece of being able to get the word out to let people know who I am. So if you could scroll to the very bottom of my front main webpage site, there's all the little, I mean, kids have me everywhere. I'm on TikTok. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I am on X. I am on YouTube, you name it. They've got me there and now they're helping me make sure I post everything. But those are great ways that you can follow me. And then the more people that follow me, the more opportunity, more people can hear about it. And that's just huge. Sharing that out. It's available in both the paperback and hardbound. Right now, if you go out there, it's available in ebook. And in the next 2 weeks, it will be available on Audible also. As busy as I am, I drive around and listen to everything. I can be cleaning the house and I have my AirPods in and I'm listening to a book. So I know how very, very important it is to be able to listen to a book too. So it will be available that way. So please get out there. And I am going to be starting a podcast. It's just one of the many things. So and I would not be surprised if you'd hear Adam on my podcast because I'm going to ask him to join me when we talk about some of these things. But I think it's
Well,
so very it's going to be a great way to get the message out there and share it. So as you come across that, please join us and download it. So
amazing, Colleen. You're awesome. I really appreciate everything you've shared. It just aligns with everything that we try to instill in our parents and our teens.
awesome.
We are
Yeah.
so aligned. I love it. Everything you shared. I'm excited for the book to come out. Congratulations again. That's
Thank
such a big
you.
feat. You got it done. You're like you mentioned the countdown. We're 3 weeks away now.
Woo-wee.
Crazy. I think it's already almost October. Probably like you're like but yeah, you
Yeah.
make a good point about the audio.
Starting
So many
starting in 2 days, I'm gonna be like, "Oh my gosh, it's coming out this month." Yeah.
countdown, countdown. Amazing. Well, thank you so
Yeah.
much again, Colleen. I really
Thanks so
appreciate
much
your
for
time
having
today.
me.
Thank you. Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. All right. Thanks so
Yes.
much.
All right. Take
Bye-bye.
care.